Turn yourself into a PvP god with these secret tips. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video I'll be showing you how to in 2025 become a PvP god and use these secret tips and advantages while in PvP to gain an advantage and become a better PvP player overall. So the first one is positioning is key, and what I mean by this is use line of sight and the high ground advantage. So with a high ground advantage, you've got a better view of your enemy. So this is going to give you a strategic advantage. It's not a massive advantage, but it does help. And the next one is the line of sight. So when I say line of sight, you can hide behind objects or structures to break the line of sight when enemies are focusing in on you. This is going to give you time to recover resources and also your health. And peeking out at the right moment is also key. So for an example is the Radiant Oppression, the Templar Execute. This can be broken by moving around structures. So that is a really good way to break the enemy's line of sight. The next tip is to utilize your environment. So in certain maps, particularly in the BG maps, there's like lava pools and other stuff and things you can knock enemies off. So if you're using, say, like the bow skill which fires players back, I think it's Magnum Shot, you can knock enemies into a disadvantage and make them take damage or even fall damage. So that's another great tip. The third tip is timing your ultimate, because a lot of players can just throw it willy-nilly and sometimes it's not key. You don't want to waste your ultimate on a single low health player. If a group fight is coming, it's often better to save it for an important moment where you can hit multiple targets, or if they're in lower health. There's no point in throwing, say, an offensive ultimate if they're at full health. So depending on the ultimate, of course, but just timing is key, particularly with the ultimate. Don't waste it. And the fourth tip is know your enemy's class and play style. So if you're facing off against a certain class, say like a Dragon Knight, expect, corrosive or a leap incoming, so you can block the leaps to stop them doing damage, or you can see the corrosive. So that's just an example of the Dragon Knight. Or if you're, say, playing against a Necromancer, expect them to turn into the Goliath, or just expect what class, learn the play styles of each class. So if you are coming up against someone one-on-one, know what is going to be coming. And the fifth tip is blocking and dodging. Make sure you are timing these correctly. Don't just spam your blocks and dodges, as this is just going to drain your stamina. You're going to run out of stamina and then you're going to get CC'd and put down very quickly. So make sure they are timed so you can block and dodge at the correct moment. And the sixth tip is for stamina based users against Magicka users. So you can use special stamina draining poisons on more Magicka based opponents, say like a Mage Sork, as they tend to have a smaller stamina bar. So you can use a draining poison to quickly get rid of their stamina as fast as possible. Like I said, and because they won't have a bigger bar, you can sort of pin them into a CC, as they're very heavily reliant on Magicka. So yes, a sorcerer is definitely susceptible to that. So there's special potions you can craft to really hinder the stamina return. So tip number 7 is to utilize speed buffs for kite and range. So if you're fighting against enemies that are melee, make sure you stack enough speed buffs, like putting the swift trait on your jewelry or major expedition. This is going to help you kite them more effectively and outmaneuver them in close combat. When you can stay at range, it's much easier to avoid getting hit by heavy hitting melee abilities. So keeping in range, keeping in range is going to really hinder you. So sometimes using streak, make some distance, and that is key fighting against melee opponents. Tip number 8 is regarding Nightblades. So obviously Nightblades are still using cloak quite often, and a lot of players still don't really utilize the skills in the game that can really hinder invisibility, which is the potions of detection, which are not used that much and are particularly really good in battlegrounds as they've got nowhere to run and hide. Or also the revealing flare is also another great one to reveal those Nightblades and stop them sneaking up on you, as but they can become very pesky, particularly in the BGs. So that is a good way to hinder them. Tip number 9 is ways to gain sustain without using potions or relying on potions as much. So you can use certain skills in the game like Dark Deal that's going to restore resources at a minimal cost, or the Wood Elf Racial, the Hasty Retreat. So these are going to return resources for you when you're very, very low, and they're very, very effective, maybe underutilized, particularly the Wood Elf. And tip number 10 is use dodge rolls and repositioning to escape healers and really throw them off guard. You know, if you're stuck in a fight with a healer, it's often not enough to just out damage them. Sometimes you need to reposition with a dodge roll and stuff like that, and you can break their line of sight and force them to waste time repositioning. If they're wasting time repositioning, then they're not healing. So you need to get behind them, flank them, throw them off guard, maybe kite them away, and just try and get them off that sort of ground-based healing they're just throwing and just standing there. Try and sort of bait them out of what they're doing. And tip number 11 is make sure you're utilising light and heavy attacks in between your rotations when you're in PvP. Even though this is more PvE focused, in PvP it still plays a massive and crucial role when generating ultimate and also dealing extra damage in between your skills. So every time you're in between a skill, you can throw light attacks. Heavy attacks are really going to restore ultimate regeneration, and I think they're definitely underutilized, as a lot of death recaps that I get, you know, other players get, you don't see huge amounts of light and heavy attacks in between skills. And I think if they were incorporated a bit more, you'd definitely be pumping out a bit more damage, more ultimate return, and definitely more sustain return, particularly with the heavy attacks. And the final tip is tip number 12, which is make sure you utilise your siege weapons during large scale fights, because they're often overlooked. And if you're really up against it with a large group, you know, really retreating back and sort of helping your group by sort of throwing in some ballistas or even some meat bags can really swing the tide of battle. And it is utilised, but make sure you're definitely using it as well. So make sure you have some siege equipped in open world PvP, as this is really going to help and can really shift the tide of battle. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Hopefully these tips and secret advantages will give you a bit of an edge in PvP, particularly if you're a new player. But even if you're a veteran player and you just want a little brush up on a few tips and techniques, this is really, really going to help you out. I hope you enjoyed it. Drop the video a like, guys. In the comments, drop me down your favourite tip or anything you want to know, and I'll see you in the next video.